The brutal Arizona summer of 1885 showed no mercy to anyone, least of all to Lily and Emma Harper. Abandoned in a dried-up wash, their bodies weakened and their spirits nearly broken, the sisters prepared to join their murdered parents in death's scorching embrace. But fate had other plans. As the relentless sun threatened to become their executioner, an unexpected savior emerged from the shimmering heat waves. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Daniel Swift Horse, master tracker of the Navajo people. Their unlikely encounter would challenge everything they both believed about their worlds and forge a bond that defied the violent prejudices of their time. This is the forgotten story of how three souls from warring sides of the American frontier found humanity in each other when all hope seemed lost. Before we jump into this remarkable true story, take a moment to consider how far you would go to protect someone you love. And if this story touches your heart, remember to subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of courage and survival against impossible odds. 13-year-old Lily Harper shielded her eyes against the merciless sun, scanning the barren landscape for any sign of water or shelter. Beside her, 9-year-old Emma had fallen into an exhausted silence, her normally chatty demeanor replaced by the 1,000-yard stare of a child who had witnessed horrors no young eyes should ever see. 4 days earlier, the Harper family had been traveling west along the newly established pioneer route, their wagon loaded with everything they owned. After 3 years of struggling to make ends meet in Missouri following the economic panic of '73, William Harper had finally convinced his wife Catherine that Arizona Territory offered the fresh start they desperately needed. Mark my words, he'd told the girls with characteristic optimism as they crossed into the territory, this time next year we'll have our own homestead, maybe even a few cattle. His weathered face had creased into a smile that made his blue eyes, the same eyes he'd passed to both his daughters, crinkle at the corners. And you'll have your own rooms. How about that? The memory made Lily's throat tighten with grief. Her father would never see that homestead now. Neither would her mother. The attack had come swiftly at dawn, just as Catherine was stoking the breakfast fire and William was checking the wagon wheels. Lily had been fetching water from a nearby spring when she heard the first gunshots. She dropped the bucket and run back toward camp, only to freeze at the sight before her. 5 men with bandanas covering their faces, guns drawn, surrounding her parents. "Just take what you want," William had said, hands raised. "We don't want trouble." "That's mighty generous of you," the tallest man had drawled, his voice carrying clearly to where Lily stood, hidden behind a mesquite tree. "But see, out here, trouble has a way of finding folks who don't belong." What happened next played on endless repeat in Lily's nightmares. The men had shot her father point blank when he lunged to protect Catherine. Then they'd turned on her mother. Lily had remained frozen, one hand clamped over her own mouth to stifle her screams, the other reaching back to grab Emma, who had followed her to the spring. With a survival instinct she hadn't known she possessed, Lily had pulled her little sister away from the camp, away from the horror, into the scrub brush and unforgiving terrain beyond. They'd run until their lungs burned, until Emma's legs gave out, until they couldn't hear the men's voices anymore. Only then had Lily allowed them to collapse in the shade of a rocky outcropping, both of them shaking with terror and grief. "They're going to come after us," Emma had whispered, her voice small and broken. "They saw our tent." Lily nodded grimly. "That's why we have to keep moving, away from the trail. That had been 4 days ago, 4 days of walking in what Lily hoped was a straight line toward the settlement of Copper Springs, where their father had planned to acquire their homestead. Papers. 4 days, with nothing but a small canteen they'd managed to grab in their flight, now empty for almost 2 days. 4 days of hiding at every sound, sleeping in shifts, and surviving on cactus fruit that made their tongues swell and their stomachs cramp. Now, as the sun climbed toward its midday position, Lily felt hope slipping away. Emma's fair skin had burned an angry red, despite the makeshift shade Lily had created using her shawl. Both girls' lips were cracked and bleeding, their tongues swollen from thirst. Worse still, Emma had begun seeing things that weren't there, a sure sign of heat sickness, their mother would have said. "Lily, look," Emma murmured, pointing weakly toward a distant dune. "Is that Papa?" "No, Em," Lily said gently, pulling her sister close. "Rest your eyes now. They needed shelter, and they needed it soon." The small ridge they'd been following offered little protection from the sun's punishment. Ahead, Lily spotted a cluster of boulders that promised at least some shade. If they could reach it, they might survive until evening, when the temperatures would drop enough for them to continue. "Just a little farther," Lily encouraged, helping Emma to her feet. "See those rocks? We'll rest there." Emma nodded, too exhausted to speak, and leaned heavily against her older sister. Together they staggered forward, two small figures in a vast, indifferent landscape. The boulder cluster, when they finally reached it, revealed a small cave-like opening. Not deep enough to be called a proper cave, but the overhang created a pocket of blessed shade. Lily helped Emma inside, then collapsed beside her, both girls panting from exertion. "We're going to die here, aren't we?" Emma asked after a long silence, her voice flat with resignation. The question struck Lily like a physical blow. She was 13, barely old enough to understand death herself, let alone comfort her sister in the face of it. But she was all Emma had now. "No," Lily said with forced conviction, "we're not going to die. We're Harper girls, and Harper girls don't give up. You remember what Mama always said?" A ghost of a smile touched Emma's cracked lips. "God helps those who help themselves." "That's right," Lily nodded, though in truth she wasn't sure God was listening anymore, not after what had happened to their parents. "We just need to be smart, rest during the day, travel at night when it's cooler." "But we don't have any water," Emma pointed out, with the brutal practicality of children. "Miss Winters at school said people can only go 3 days without water." Lily had no answer for that. Instead, she rummaged through the pockets of her dress, producing a smooth stone their father had given her from the creek back home. "Here," she said, placing it in Emma's palm. "Put this in your mouth. It won't be water, but it might help." Emma accepted the stone, tucking it against her cheek, as she had seen their father do with hard candies. Her eyes, so like their father's, slid closed in exhaustion. Lily watched her sister's chest rise and fall in shallow breaths, fighting back tears that would only waste precious moisture. She needed to be strong. She needed a plan. But the crushing weight of their situation, orphaned, lost, without food or water in one of the most unforgiving landscapes on earth, made thinking clearly almost impossible. The sisters spent the afternoon huddled in their meager shelter, drifting in and out of restless sleep. As the sun began its descent, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson, Lily roused Emma. "We should try to walk now," she said, helping her sister sit up. "It'll be cooler soon." Emma nodded weakly, but as she tried to stand, her legs buckled beneath her. Lily caught her before she hit the ground, alarm shooting through her veins. Emma's skin burned with fever, and her eyes couldn't seem to focus. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I'm so tired, Lily." "It's okay," Lily assured her, though panic clawed at her throat. "We can rest a bit longer." As she settled Emma back against the rock wall, a sound froze her in place. The distant but unmistakable rhythm of hoofbeats. Someone was coming. Lily's first instinct was to hide deeper in their small shelter, to pull Emma into the shadows and hope whoever was approaching would pass them by. But a terrible certainty settled in her gut. These were the men who had murdered Their parents tracking them across the desert to eliminate any witnesses. "Emma," she whispered urgently, "someone's coming. We need to be very quiet." Emma's eyes widened with fear, but she nodded, instinctively pressing herself against the rock wall. Lily positioned herself in front of her sister, a futile shield against whatever was coming. The hoofbeats grew louder, then slowed. Through the narrow opening of their shelter, Lily could see a lone rider dismounting. Not 5 men, just one. That didn't necessarily mean safety, but it was better odds than she dared hope for. The rider moved with a fluid grace that spoke of long familiarity with the harsh terrain. He was tall, with copper skin and straight black hair that fell past his shoulders. His clothing was a mixture of native and Western styles, buckskin pants, a cotton shirt, and moccasins that made his approach nearly silent. Lily held her breath as the man knelt to examine something on the ground. With a jolt, she realized he was studying their tracks. He was tracking them. The man stood, turning slowly until he was facing directly toward their hiding place. For an endless moment, he simply stared, as if he could see through the shadows, to where they huddled in terror. "I know you are there," he said finally, his English clear but accented. "I mean no harm." Lily remained frozen, one hand protectively gripping Emma's arm. This could be a trick. The killers could have hired a native tracker to find them. The man took a step closer, then stopped, seeming to sense their fear. With deliberate movements, he unstrapped a water skin from his belt and placed it on the ground before retreating several paces. "You need water," he said simply. "Take it." Thirst warred with caution in Lily's mind. Emma needed water desperately, but stepping out of their shelter would leave them completely vulnerable. "Why should we trust you?" Lily called, her voice cracking from disuse and dehydration. The man considered this for a moment. "You should not," he answered with unexpected honesty, "but you will die without water, and I have no reason to harm 2 lost children." "How do you know we're lost?" Lily challenged, a hint of what might have been amusement crossed the man's face. "Your tracks tell your story. 2 girls, one supporting the other, moving in circles since yesterday, running from something." His expression sobered. "Or someone." Lily swallowed hard, weighing their options. They could stay hidden and certainly die, or they could take a chance on this stranger. "My sister is sick," she finally admitted. "She needs water." The man nodded once. "Then come. The water is yours." Drawing on the last reserves of her courage, Lily emerged from the shelter, half carrying Emma. The air outside their rocky refuge had cooled with the approaching evening, though heat still radiated from the ground. The water skin lay where the man had placed it, tantalizingly close. Keeping her eyes on the stranger, Lily reached for the water skin. When he made no move to stop her, she uncorked it and helped Emma drink in small, measured sips, as their mother had taught them to do when overheated. "Slowly," the man cautioned, echoing what Lily already knew. "Too much at once will make her sick." After Emma had taken several careful swallows, Lily allowed herself a drink. The water was warm but clean, and it felt like a miracle sliding down her parched throat. Only when both girls had drunk did Lily address their benefactor. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe. To our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Thank you," she said formally. "I'm Lily Harper. This is my sister, Emma." The man inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I am Daniel Swift Horse of the Diné, what your people call Navajo." "Are you going to help us, or turn us in?" Lily asked. Bluntly, too exhausted for diplomacy, Daniel studied her with dark, perceptive eyes. "Turn you in to whom?" "The men who killed our parents," Emma answered before Lily could stop her. "They had bandanas over their faces. They took everything. We ran away." Something flashed in Daniel's expression, anger perhaps, or recognition. "When did this happen?" 4 days ago," Lily said, calculating. Near Rattlesnake Creek. Daniel nodded slowly. I know of these men. They have been raiding along the pioneer route for months. Both white settlers and my people have suffered at their hands. A flicker of hope sparked in Lily's chest. Then you'll help us. Your sister needs more than water, Daniel observed, glancing at Emma's feverish face. She needs medicine and shelter. My people's summer camp is 2 days' ride from here. Lily's heart sank. 2 days. Emma might not survive that long in her condition, as if reading her thoughts. Daniel continued. But first, we will go to Cheyenne Canyon. It is half a day's ride. There is water and shade there, and plants for medicine. Why are you helping us? Lily asked, needing to understand. Everything she'd been taught about Indians, a word her father had always corrected to native peoples, suggested she should fear this man, not trust him with their lives. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his gaze drifting to the horizon, where the sun was beginning its descent. I was returning from Copper Springs, he finally said. I saw buzzards circling, following your path. Death was tracking you. He met Lily's eyes directly. I decided to find you first. It wasn't exactly an answer, but Lily sensed it was all she would get for now. And in truth, his reasons mattered less than the water he'd provided, and the help he was offering. We should go, Daniel said, looking at the darkening sky. Night brings coyotes and other hunters. Can your sister ride? Lily looked at Emma, who had rallied slightly after drinking. I think so, if I'm with her. Daniel nodded and moved toward his horse, a sturdy pinto that watched the proceedings with calm interest. He adjusted his supplies to make room for the girls, then helped Lily lift Emma onto the horse's back before assisting Lily up behind her. As Daniel took the reins and began leading the horse away from the boulder cluster that had been their last refuge, Lily felt a complex mixture of fear and relief. They were placing their lives in the hands of a stranger, a native tracker whose people were often in conflict with white settlers. Yet something in his steady manner, in the way he had tracked them not to harm, but to help, gave her a fragile hope that perhaps they might survive after all. The desert, painted in deepening shades of purple and blue by the setting sun, stretched before them. Somewhere ahead lay Cheyenne Canyon, a name Lily couldn't pronounce, but which now represented their best chance at survival. Behind them lay the bodies of their parents, unmourned and unburied, and the shattered remnants of the life they had known. The last light faded from the sky. Stars emerged in breathtaking profusion, illuminating their path with silver light. Emma, secure in Lily's arms, had fallen into an exhausted sleep. Daniel moved with quiet confidence through terrain that seemed featureless to Lily's untrained eyes, following markers only he could see. Rest if you can, he advised without looking back. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. Though she fought against it, exhaustion eventually overcame Lily's vigilance. Lulled by the rhythmic movement of the horse and the surprising security of Emma's weight against her chest, she drifted into an uneasy sleep. Her last conscious thought was a prayer, not to the stern God of the family Bible, but to whatever power might be listening, that they had made the right choice in trusting Daniel's swift horse. In the vast Arizona desert, under a canopy of stars, 3 unlikely companions moved steadily through the night, a Navajo tracker and 2 orphaned sisters, bound together by circumstance and the harsh demands of survival in a land that forgave no weakness and offered no second chances. Dawn broke across the desert in a spectacular wash of pink and gold, revealing the true harshness of the landscape they'd traversed throughout the night. Lily blinked awake, momentarily disoriented before the weight of reality crashed back upon her. Their parents were dead. She and Emma were alone in the desert with a Navajo man they'd just met. Daniel's swift horse had not stopped for rest, leading his horse tirelessly through the night, Now, as the sun breached the horizon, Lily could see they were approaching a series of rust-colored cliffs rising dramatically from the desert floor. Cheyi Canyon, Daniel announced, noticing her gaze. Sacred to my people. We will find water there. Emma stirred in Lily's arms, her forehead still hot with fever, but her eyes clearer than they had been the previous evening. "Where are we?" she asked weakly. "Somewhere safe," Lily assured her, though she had no way of knowing if that was true. Daniel led them into a narrow passage between towering rock walls, the temperature dropping noticeably as they entered the shadow of the cliffs. The passage widened into a hidden valley where, miraculously, green vegetation flourished around a small, clear spring bubbling from the rock. "Water," Emma whispered reverently. Daniel helped them dismount, supporting Emma when her legs threatened to buckle. "Drink slowly," he reminded them as he led them to the spring. The water was cool and sweet, so different from the warm liquid in Daniel's water skin. Lily watched Emma carefully, making sure she followed Daniel's instructions not to drink too quickly. When both girls had satisfied their immediate thirst, Daniel guided them to a sandy area beneath an overhanging cliff that provided deep shade. "Rest here," he said. "I will find plants for medicine." As Daniel moved away to search the vegetation near the spring, Lily finally had a moment to truly look at their rescuer. In the clear morning light, she estimated he was in his early 30s. His features were sharp and well-defined, his bearing dignified. A single eagle feather was tied into his long black hair, and a medicine pouch hung at his waist alongside a hunting knife. He wore no gun that she could see. "Do you think we can trust him?" Emma whispered, following Lily's gaze. Lily considered the question seriously. "He could have left us to die," she pointed out, "or taken advantage of us somehow. But he brought us to water instead. Papa always said not all Indians are savages, no matter what the newspapers say," Emma remembered. "He said people are just people, no matter their color." Lily nodded, her throat tight with grief at the mention of their father. William Harper had been unusual among frontier settlers for his respectful views toward the native peoples they encountered. It had earned him criticism from other pioneers, but he had never wavered in his conviction that understanding between the races was possible. Papa would probably trust him, Lily decided. So we will too, for now. Daniel returned with a handful of plants, some bearing small flowers, others with fleshy leaves. He sat cross-legged near the girls and began to prepare his remedies, grinding leaves between smooth stones and mixing them with water in a small wooden cup. "What is that?" Lily asked, watching his methodical movements. "Medicine for fever," Daniel replied. "My grandmother was a healer. She taught me which plants hold power." "Like a doctor?" Emma asked, her interest piqued despite her weakened state. Daniel considered this. "Not like your doctors with their bitter powders and bleeding tools. Our healing connects the body and spirit. Both must be treated." He offered the cup to Emma. "Drink. It tastes of the earth, but it will cool the fire in your blood." Emma looked to Lily for permission. At her sister's nod, she took the cup and drank its contents, making a face at the bitter taste, but finishing it dutifully. "Now real food," Daniel said, reaching into his pack. He produced strips of dried meat and a small pouch of what looked like crushed grain. "Eat slowly. Your stomachs have forgotten food." The jerky was tough but flavorful, and the grain mixture, which Daniel called pinole, was surprisingly sweet. After days of cactus fruit and thirst, it seemed like a feast. As they ate, Lily gathered her courage to ask the questions that had been burning in her mind. "Those men who killed our parents, do you know who they are?" Daniel's expression darkened. "They are called the Dixon Gang, 7 men led by a scarred man named Mason Dixon. They prey on travelers far from towns and law. The military doesn't." "Stop them?" Lily asked. "The soldiers stay near their forts," Daniel said with a hint of bitterness. "They say they don't have enough men to patrol all the routes, and when native people are attacked, they show even less concern." Lily absorbed this information, her young mind grappling with the injustice. What about the sheriff in Copper Springs? Sheriff Taylor is one man, Daniel replied. He tries, but the territory is vast, and some say Dixon has friends in high places, men who profit from stolen goods but keep their hands clean. So they'll just get away with it. Lily's voice rose with indignation. With killing our parents and stealing everything we had. Daniel studied her intently. Justice takes many forms, Lily Harper. Sometimes it comes from expected places, sometimes not. But these men have made many enemies. Their day will come. Lily wanted to demand more, to insist that something be done immediately, but exhaustion was rapidly overtaking her. Now that they were safe, at least temporarily, the adrenaline that had kept her going for days was fading, leaving her hollow and desperately tired. Sleep now, Daniel encouraged, noticing her drooping eyelids. We stay here until your sister's. Fever breaks, then we journey to my people's camp. Despite her determination to remain vigilant, Lily soon succumbed to sleep, Emma nestled against her side. When she awoke, the light had shifted, suggesting several hours had passed. Daniel sat a short distance away, carving something from a piece of wood, his movements precise and patient. Emma was still sleeping, but when Lily placed a hand on her forehead, she was relieved to find it cooler. Whatever medicine Daniel had given her seemed to be working. The fever lessens, Daniel observed without looking up from his carving. She is stronger than she appears. She's a Harper, Lily said simply, as if that explained everything. In many ways, it did. Their mother had often remarked that Harper women were made of sterner stuff than most. Looking at her sister's small, peaceful face, Lily prayed it was true. You should eat more, Daniel suggested, nodding toward the remaining food. We have a difficult journey ahead. As Lily ate, she studied their surroundings more carefully. The canyon was beautiful in a stark, dramatic way, all sweeping rock formations and unexpected pockets of greenery. In another time, another situation, she might have been thrilled to discover such a place. How did you know this canyon was here? She asked Daniel. My people have known these lands for generations, he replied, long before white settlers arrived with their maps and flags, claiming territories they did not understand. There was no hostility in his tone, merely a statement of fact, but Lily felt a flicker of discomfort nonetheless. My father always said we should learn from the people who were here first, she offered. He respected your ways. Daniel looked up from his carving, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. Yet he came to claim land for himself. We needed a home, Lily said defensively. After the banks failed back east, there was nothing left for us there. Papa said there was room enough for everyone if people were fair about it. Fair, Daniel repeated, testing the word. What is fair when one people has everything taken, while another builds new lives on what was lost? He sighed, setting aside his carving. But these are old wounds, and you are a child who has lost much. I do not blame you for the sins of others. An uncomfortable silence fell between them, the cultural divide suddenly yawning wider than the canyon that sheltered them. Lily struggled to find words to bridge it, aware that her 13 years had not prepared her for such complex moral questions. I'm sorry, she said finally, the words feeling woefully inadequate. About what happened to your people, I mean. Daniel's expression softened slightly. You have a good heart, Lily Harper. Like the juniper tree that bends, but does not break in the storm. He picked up his carving again, a small animal figurine beginning to take shape. Rest more if you can. We leave at dusk when the air cools. The remainder of their stay in Seyi Canyon passed in this pattern of cautious conversation punctuated by long silences. Emma awoke by late afternoon, her fever broken but her strength still compromised. She accepted more of Daniel's medicine without complaint and even managed to walk the short distance to the spring unassisted. As the shadows lengthened, Daniel prepared for their departure. He refilled his water skin, packed away his few possessions, and checked his horse's hooves for stones or injuries. His efficiency spoke of long experience with desert journeys. "Where exactly are we going?" Lily asked as she helped Emma gather their meager belongings, essentially just the clothes they wore and a small stone Emma had kept from their father. "To my people's summer camp near the Black Mesa," Daniel replied. "It is 2 days' ride if we travel at night and rest during the hottest hours, and then what happens to us?" Emma asked the question Lily had been avoiding. Daniel knelt to Emma's level, his expression serious but kind. "First, you heal properly. Then we decide what comes next. Perhaps you have relatives who can be contacted." Lily shook her head. "Papa was an only child. Mama's family disowned her when she married Papa. The bitter family division had been a source of sadness their mother rarely discussed." "Then we will consider other options," Daniel said simply. "My people do not abandon children, even those of a different color." The sun was just touching the western horizon when they left the sanctuary of the canyon, Daniel once again leading his horse with both girls mounted. Emma sat in front, more alert now but still weak, while Lily maintained her protective position. Behind her sister, the landscape opened before them, vast, seemingly endless stretches of sand and rock punctuated by the occasional stunted tree or cactus. To Lily's untrained eye, it all looked the same, a featureless wasteland with no discernible landmarks or paths. Yet Daniel moved with absolute confidence, following trails only he could see. "How do you know which way to go?" Emma asked, giving voice to Lily's thoughts. Daniel gestured toward the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. "The stars guide us at night. During the day, the sun, and the land itself speaks to those who know how to listen." "What does it say?" Emma's question held genuine curiosity rather than skepticism. Daniel seemed to appreciate this. "It tells of water hidden beneath the surface, of storms approaching before clouds can be seen, of animals that have passed. How many? How recently?" He pointed to a barely discernible depression in the sand. "Here, 3 coyotes traveled yesterday. They were hunting." Emma's eyes widened. "You can tell all that just by looking at the ground? Reading sign is like reading your books," Daniel explained. "At first, the marks mean nothing. With practice, they tell stories. As darkness fell completely, the temperature dropped dramatically." Daniel stopped to wrap both girls in a blanket from his pack before continuing their journey. The night desert was alive with sounds, the distant howl of coyotes, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, the soft hooting of an owl hunting. In the darkness, they traveled steadily through the night, stopping occasionally to rest the horse and allow the girls to stretch their legs. Daniel remained vigilant, his posture alert to any hint of danger. Once, he froze suddenly, holding up a hand for silence. After a tense moment, he relaxed slightly. "Riders," he explained in a whisper, "far to the west, moving away from us." "How can you tell?" Lily asked, straining her ears but hearing nothing. "The desert carries sound in strange ways," Daniel said. "Sometimes you hear with more than your ears." The cryptic answer was typical of their interactions, moments of connection followed by reminders of the vast cultural differences between them. Daniel viewed the world through a lens entirely different from theirs, shaped by traditions and knowledge that had been passed down through countless generations of his people. As the night wore on, Emma fell asleep, nestled securely against Lily. Daniel, noticing this, suggested they stop for a more substantial rest in a small arroyo that offered some protection from the wind. "The difficult part of our journey begins tomorrow," he told Lily, as he carefully lifted Emma down from the horse. "We must cross an open country with little shelter. If the Dixon gang is searching for you, that is where they would find us most easily." The casual mention of their parents' killers sent a chill through Lily that had nothing to do with the desert night. Do you think they're looking for us? Daniel arranged his blanket to make a comfortable spot for Emma before answering. Men like Dixon leave no witnesses if they can help it. 2 young girls who could identify them. Yes, they will search, at least for a time. Then why are we going to your people's camp? Lily asked, suddenly fearful. Won't we be putting them in danger too? Daniel's expression was grave but resolute. My people know how to protect themselves, and sometimes the safest place is one your enemies would never think to look. He gestured toward the endless desert surrounding them. Dixon would expect you to head for white settlements, not a Navajo camp. The logic was sound, but Lily remained troubled. I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of us. That choice is not yours to make, Daniel said, not unkindly. When my people offer protection, they do so knowing the risks. He settled nearby, his back against a rock, clearly intending to keep watch while the girls slept. In the soft starlight, his profile was sharp against the sky, his expression unreadable. Why did you really help us? Lily asked the question that had been nagging at her since their first encounter. Daniel was silent for so long that Lily thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and measured. 5 seasons ago I had a daughter. She would be Emma's age now. His hand moved unconsciously to touch the medicine pouch at his waist. Soldiers came to our winter camp while I was away. Hunting, there was a misunderstanding, then violence. Many died, including my wife and child. Lily's throat tightened with empathy. I'm sorry. One soldier, his uniform showed him to be a healer, tried to help my daughter after she was shot. He covered her body with his own when others would have continued firing. Daniel's gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. He died for this act of mercy, killed by his own people. I never learned his name, but I see his face in my dreams. He turned to look directly at Lily. When I found you and your sister, I remembered this man. I thought perhaps the spirits had sent you to me, a chance to honor his sacrifice by saving 2 lives when I could not save my family. The raw honesty of his explanation left Lily speechless. This man, whom she had been taught to fear as an enemy, had shared a wound so personal that she felt humbled by his trust. Thank you for telling me, she finally managed, and for saving us. Daniel nodded once, then turned his attention back to keeping watch. Sleep now, he advised. Tomorrow will test us all. As Lily curled protectively around Emma, her mind returned to their father's words, people are just people no matter their color. In Daniel Swifthorse, a man from a culture so different from her own that they barely shared a common language, she had found surprising proof that her father had been right all along. With that comforting thought, she surrendered to exhaustion, allowing sleep to claim her under the vast desert sky. The second day of their journey began in the hushed hour before dawn, when the desert was at its coolest and stars still dominated the sky. Daniel roused Lily with a gentle touch on her shoulder, his finger pressed to his lips in a signal for silence. Emma was already awake, her eyes wide but alert in the dim light. We must move quickly, Daniel whispered. I have seen dust on the horizon, riders coming this way. Lily's heart stuttered with fear. The Dixon gang, perhaps, or soldiers. Neither would be good for us. The implications were clear. To soldiers, Daniel would be a suspicious figure, a Navajo man traveling with 2 white girls. To the Dixon gang, Lily and Emma were loose ends to be eliminated. Either encounter could prove fatal. They broke camp with practiced efficiency, leaving minimal trace of their presence in the arroyo. Daniel lifted Emma onto the horse, then helped Lily mount behind her. Instead of leading on foot as he had before, he swung up in front of Emma, taking the reins. Hold tight to your sister, he instructed Lily. We ride hard until we reach the Shadowlands. The horse, carrying 3 riders now, moved at a brisk trot into the retreating darkness. Lily clutched Emma with one arm and gripped Daniel's shirt. With the other, the unfamiliar motion of horseback riding sending jolts of discomfort through her tired body. No one spoke. Even Emma seemed to understand the gravity of their situation, remaining unusually quiet as they fled the approaching riders. As the eastern sky lightened with the first hint of dawn, the landscape began to change. The flat desert gave way to increasingly broken terrain, deep gullies, rocky outcroppings, and the occasional stunted tree. Daniel guided the horse through this maze with unerring confidence, choosing paths that seemed random to Lily, but clearly followed some strategy. "We leave false trails," he explained, when they paused briefly to rest the laboring horse. "Go forward, then back, then in a new direction. It confuses those who follow." "Won't they see our tracks anyway?" Emma asked. Daniel smiled slightly. "Look, behind us. What do you see?" Both girls turned to survey the path they had taken. Lily saw only rocky ground and scattered patches of hard-packed earth, no obvious tracks or trail. "I don't see anything," she admitted. "Exactly," Daniel nodded approvingly. "I choose a ground that holds no marks. It is an old hunting trick of my people." They continued in this manner as the sun climbed higher, the temperature rising with it. By mid-morning, the heat was becoming oppressive, the air shimmering with mirages across the desert floor. Emma, sandwiched between Daniel and Lily, began to droop with exhaustion and heat. Daniel seemed to sense this without looking back. "There," he said, pointing to a distant rock formation, "the Shadowlands. We will rest there during the worst heat." The Shadowlands proved to be a labyrinth of tall rock formations, some towering nearly 50 feet high, creating narrow passages and small caverns where the direct sun never reached. The temperature within these stone corridors was dramatically cooler, a blessed relief after the exposed desert. Daniel guided them to a small grotto where a trickle of water seeped from the rock face, collecting in a shallow basin before disappearing back into the earth. The horse drank gratefully while Daniel helped the girls dismount. "We are safe here," he assured them, though Lily noticed he positioned himself where he could see the approach to their sanctuary. "Rest now, eat." The food was the same as before, dried meat and pignole, but Lily found she was developing a taste for the simple fare. Emma, too, ate with more enthusiasm, her strength gradually returning after her bout with heat sickness. "Tell me about your home," Daniel requested as they ate, his manner more relaxed now that they were temporarily secure. "The place you lived before coming west." Lily was surprised by the question, the first personal inquiry he had made. "We lived in a town called Riverdale in Missouri," she said. "Papa worked in a furniture factory, and Mama took in sewing." "We had a real house," Emma added eagerly, "with glass windows and a pump right in the kitchen, and a garden where Mama grew beans and tomatoes, and a big oak tree in the yard," Lily continued, the memories both sweet and painful. "Papa built us a swing on it. In summer we'd sit there in the evenings while Mama read to us." "What did she read?" Daniel asked, genuine interest in his expression. "All sorts of things," Lily replied. "Bible stories sometimes, but also adventure tales. Robinson Crusoe was her favorite, and poems. She loved Longfellow." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "My people also value stories. They carry our history, our wisdom, our connection to the land. Without them, we would forget who we are." "Do you know many stories?" Emma asked, warming to the subject. "Many," Daniel confirmed. "Some are only told in certain seasons or for certain purposes. Others can be shared freely. Would you tell us one?" The request came from Emma, but Lily found she was equally curious. Daniel seemed to consider this, perhaps weighing which stories were appropriate to share with outsiders. Finally, he nodded. "I will tell you how first man and first woman came to this world, and how the sacred mountains were formed to protect our lands," he began, his voice taking on a rhythmic quality that suggested the tale had been told countless times before. The girls listened, enthralled as Daniel described the emergence of the DNA from prior worlds into the present one, how the sacred mountains were created from soil brought from the previous world, and how they were adorned with special gifts: dawn light on one, evening light on another, rainfall on the third, and the glow of sunset on the fourth. These mountains mark the boundaries of our homeland, he concluded. They are more than rock and earth. They are alive with power and meaning. When a Navajo is away from home, he turns his thoughts to these mountains for strength. That's beautiful, Lily said sincerely. Different from what our preacher taught us, but beautiful. Daniel studied her face, perhaps looking for signs of mockery, but seemed satisfied with her genuine appreciation. Different paths can lead to the same truths, he observed. My grandmother used to say that the Creator speaks many languages. This unexpected philosophical statement from a man she had initially feared as a savage made Lily reconsider many of her assumptions. The easy categorization she had been taught, civilized versus wild, Christian versus heathen, seemed increasingly inadequate to describe the complex reality before her. As the afternoon wore on, they shared more stories. Lily told Daniel about their school in Riverdale, about Papa's dreams of starting a carpentry shop of his own someday, about the financial panic that had wiped out their savings and pushed them westward. In return, Daniel spoke of his childhood, in the high plateaus, learning to track game with his father, and of the changes he had witnessed as more white settlers pushed into traditional Navajo territories. The old ways are being forced to change, he acknowledged, a note of resignation in his voice. Some of my people fight this with weapons, others seek accommodation. I walk between these paths, taking what is useful from both worlds. Is that why you speak English so well? Lily asked. Daniel nodded. I was sent to a government school for 3 years as a boy. They tried to make me forget my language, my traditions, but I learned their knowledge while keeping my own. A hint of pride touched his features. Now I serve as a scout, sometimes for the Indian Agency and sometimes for my people's council. I move between worlds. Wasn't it hard? Emma asked. Being away from your family at school. A shadow crossed Daniel's face. Very hard. They cut our hair, punished us for speaking our language, told us our ways were primitive and wrong. His jaw tightened at the memory. Many children did not survive those schools. Disease took some, heartbreak took others. Lily tried to imagine being torn from her family, forced to abandon everything familiar, language, clothing, customs, even her name. The cruelty of it struck her deeply. I'm sorry that happened to you, she said inadequately. Daniel's expression softened. It shaped me into who I am now. Perhaps the Creator knew I would need both worlds' knowledge to find 2 lost girls in the desert. Emma, who had been listening intently, reached out impulsively to touch Daniel's hand. I'm glad you found us, she said simply. The unexpected gesture seemed to startle Daniel, but after a moment he covered her small hand with his own. As am I, little one. This moment of connection was interrupted by a distant sound, faint but distinctive in the quiet of the Shadowlands. Hoofbeats approaching from the north. Daniel's posture changed instantly, all relaxation vanishing as he rose to his feet in one fluid motion. Stay here, he ordered, moving toward the entrance of their rocky shelter. Do not make a sound. Lily pulled Emma close, heart racing as Daniel disappeared among the rock formations. The minutes stretched endlessly, the only sounds their own. Quiet breathing and the barely audible drip of water from the seep. When Daniel returned, his expression was grim. 4 riders, following our general direction but not our exact trail. They search a wide area. The Dixon gang, Lily whispered. 3 white men, 1 Mexican, Daniel confirmed. 1 has a scar across his chin. Dixon. Emma trembled against Lily. Are they coming here? Not directly. They follow a path that will take them past these rocks. Daniel moved to gather their few possessions. But we cannot stay. If they decide to search the Shadowlands, they would trap us here. Where can we go? Lily asked, rising to help prepare for departure. Won't they see us if we leave? Daniel's eyes glinted with determination. They see what they expect to see. Two white girls fleeing toward settlements. They do not expect what we will become. From his pack, he produced a small pouch of reddish powder. Ochre, he explained, mixed with bear fat. He scooped a small amount onto his fingertips. It will darken your skin. From a distance, you will appear as Navajo children. Lily hesitated only briefly before nodding her consent. The plan made practical sense, even if the idea of disguising themselves felt strange. Daniel worked quickly, applying the mixture to their faces, necks, and arms, any skin that would be visible from a distance. Your hair, he said critically, eyeing their light brown locks, too bright. He untied a leather cord from his own hair and used it to bind Lily's into a traditional Navajo style. For Emma, he fashioned a small cloth into a head wrap using a piece torn from his own shirt. When he had finished, he surveyed his work with satisfaction. Now you are Navajo children, at least to distant eyes. Keep your heads down if they come. Near, do not speak. The transformation was practical, but Lily found it carried a deeper significance as well. In disguising themselves as Navajo, they were placing their trust completely in Daniel and his people, acknowledging that their best hope for survival lay in embracing, even temporarily, a culture they had been taught to view as inferior to their own. Daniel led the horse through a different passage than the one they had entered, emerging on the western side of the rock formation. Instead of mounting, he continued on foot, leading the horse with Emma on its back. Lily walked beside him, struggling to match his longer stride. We circle back, he explained in a low voice. Cross our own trail, create confusion, then head south toward the mesa where my people camp. The strategy required them to move in the open for a time, exposed to the brutal afternoon sun and potentially visible to distant observers. Daniel set a pace that was just short of running, pushing them to cover ground quickly while still conserving energy. Lily's legs ached and her lungs burned from the exertion and dry air, but she pressed on without complaint. Emma, from her position on the horse, scanned the horizon constantly, her small face tight with worry beneath the improvised head wrap. They had been traveling this way for perhaps an hour when Emma suddenly stiffened. "Riders," she hissed, pointing to the northeast. "Coming fast." Daniel followed her gaze, his expression hardening as he spotted the distant dust cloud. Without a word, he lifted Lily onto the horse behind Emma, then vaulted up in front of them both. Digging his heels into the horse's flanks, he urged the animal into a gallop across the open desert. The horse, already tired from carrying multiple riders and the day's difficult journey, responded valiantly to the demand. But Lily, looking back over her shoulder, could see the dust cloud growing larger. Their pursuers were gaining ground. "They have fresher horses," Daniel acknowledged grimly, following her gaze, "and fewer riders per animal." "What do we do?" Lily asked, fear making her voice tight. Daniel pointed toward a distant line of cliffs. "The Gorge of Echoes is ahead. If we reach it, we have a chance." The horse galloped on, its breathing becoming labored, foam flecking its mouth. Lily could feel its strength flagging beneath them and knew they would not reach the cliffs before their pursuers caught up. Daniel seemed to reach the same conclusion. With a sharp turn of the reins, he directed the horse toward a small wash, with several large boulders scattered around it. It wasn't much cover, but it was the only option in the otherwise exposed landscape. Sliding from the horse, he helped both girls dismount quickly. "Stay low," he instructed, guiding them behind the largest boulder. "No matter what happens, do not show yourselves until I return or night falls." "You're leaving us." Emma's voice rose in panic. Daniel knelt to meet her eyes. "I lead them away from you," he explained gently. "The horse is spent. It cannot carry us all much further." "But what about you?" Lily asked, understanding his plan and fearing for his safety. "I know these lands better than any Dixon gang rider," Daniel said with quiet confidence. "I will lose them and return for you before the moon rises." He reached into his pouch and pressed something into Lily's hand, a small carved wooden fox. "For protection," he said simply. Before either girl could protest further, he swung back onto the horse and rode away, not toward the distant cliffs, but at an angle that would be clearly visible to their pursuers, while drawing them away from the girl's hiding place. Lily pulled Emma deeper into the shadow of the boulder, both of them watching as Daniel rode hard across the desert. As she had feared, the distant riders changed course, following his trail and moving past the wash without. "Slowing! Will they catch him?" Emma whispered, clutching Lily's arm. Lily squeezed the wooden fox in her palm, taking strange comfort from the small token. "No," she said with more certainty than she felt. "He's too clever for them. He'll be back for us." As the sound of hoofbeats faded into the distance, the girls settled into their hiding place, alone once more in the vast desert. But unlike their desperate situation before Daniel found them, they now had something crucial that had been missing: hope and faith in someone who had proven worthy of their trust. The sun began its slow descent toward the western horizon, painting the desert in deepening shades of gold and amber. In their rocky shelter, Lily held Emma close, both watching the direction Daniel had disappeared, waiting for his return, and praying that the trust they had placed in him would be rewarded. The desert transformed with nightfall, temperatures plummeting as stars blazed overhead in breathtaking profusion. Huddled behind their boulder, Lily and Emma waited, the promised time of Daniel's return approaching. The moon had begun its ascent, casting long shadows across the wash where they hid. "He should be back by now," Emma whispered, shivering despite the blanket they shared. Lily tightened her arm around her sister. "He'll come," she insisted, though doubt had begun to creep into her thoughts. What if the Dixon gang had caught Daniel? What if he'd been injured in the chase? What if he'd simply decided two white girls weren't worth the risk after all? She banished the last thought immediately. Whatever cultural differences existed between them, Daniel's swift horse had proven his character through actions, not words. If he hadn't returned, there was a reason beyond abandonment. A soft, scraping sound froze them both. Something or someone was moving nearby. Lily pulled Emma closer, pressing deeper into the shadow of the boulder. The sound came again, closer, now followed by the faint crunch of boots on sandy soil. "Girls." The whisper was barely audible, but unmistakably Daniel's voice. "It is safe now." Lily nearly wept with relief as Daniel's silhouette appeared around the edge of the boulder. He crouched beside them, his breathing slightly labored, a sheen of sweat visible on his forehead despite the cool night air. "You came back," Emma said, simply reaching for his hand. "I said I would," he replied, as if keeping his word was the most natural thing in the world. "But we must move quickly. The night gives us cover, but not safety." "What happened?" Lily asked as they gathered their few possessions. "Did they follow you?" Daniel nodded grimly. "I led them on a long chase, then doubled back through rocky ground, where they lost my trail. But Dixon is no fool. He will realize the deception by morning." "Where's your horse?" Emma asked, noticing its absence. A flash of regret crossed Daniel's features. "I had to let it go. It was exhausted, and I needed to move in ways a horse cannot." He straightened, scanning the horizon. "We continue on foot. The Navajo summer camp is less than a day's journey now." Walking through the desert night was both beautiful and treacherous. The starlight illuminated their path with surprising clarity, but hidden dangers lurked: cactus spines, snake holes, loose rocks that could twist an ankle. Daniel set a steady pace, occasionally stopping to listen or examine the ground, always alert for signs of pursuit. Emma tired quickly, still recovering from her heat sickness. After she stumbled for the third time, Daniel wordlessly lifted her onto his back, carrying her piggyback style as they continued their journey. Lily marveled at his stamina. He'd been awake for over 24 hours, had outrun armed pursuers, and still had strength to carry a child. "You should rest," she suggested during one of their brief stops for water. Daniel shook his head. "Rest comes when we reach safety. The Dixon gang knows these lands better than I would like. They have raided both white settlements and native camps too many times." As they traveled, Daniel shared what he had learned during his dangerous decoy mission. The gang was indeed hunting for the Harper girls, determined to eliminate the only witnesses to their latest massacre. They had split into smaller groups to cover more ground, all converging on the territory between Copper Springs and the southern desert where Daniel had found the sisters. "They're very thorough," Lily observed with a shiver. "They are desperate," Daniel corrected. "Your testimony could hang them all. In their eyes, 2 children are a small price for their freedom." The brutal calculus of their situation settled heavily on Lily's shoulders. She had never considered herself important enough to be hunted, yet here she was, the target of killers, her only protection a man from a people she had been taught to fear. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Our parents were taking us west because it was supposed to be safer than staying in Missouri," she said bitterly. "Papa said we'd have a fresh start." Daniel's expression softened with understanding. "Many journeys do not end where we expect," he said. "My grandfather once told me that the Creator sometimes leads us down strange paths to teach us what we need to learn." "What are we supposed to learn from our parents being murdered?" Lily challenged, anger flaring unexpectedly. Daniel didn't flinch from her outburst. "I cannot answer that. Some lessons reveal themselves only with time and distance." He adjusted Emma, who had fallen asleep on his back. "But I know this. Your father raised daughters with courage and resilience. Perhaps he gave you these gifts, knowing you would need them." The quiet wisdom in his words diffused Lily's anger, replacing it with a profound sadness tinged with gratitude. Her father had indeed taught them resilience, often saying that Harper women bent but never broke, like the willow trees that lined the creek near their Missouri home. They continued through the night, the terrain gradually changing as they moved. Southward, the flat desert gave way to rolling hills studded with juniper and piñon pines. In the distance, the shadowy outline of a mesa rose against the star-filled sky. Their destination, Lily presumed. Dawn was breaking when Daniel suddenly halted, his posture tense. He carefully set Emma down, signaling for silence with one finger to his lips. Lily took her sister's hand, heart racing as Daniel melted into the surrounding brush with the silent grace of a hunting cougar. Long minutes passed before he returned, his expression grim. "Soldiers," he reported tersely. "A patrol from Fort Whipple moving north along the creek bed." "Isn't that good?" Lily asked, confused. "They could help us, protect us from the Dixon gang." Daniel's laugh held no humor. "A Navajo man found with 2 white girls whose parents have been killed. What story do you think they would believe?" The question hung in the air between them, its answer painfully obvious. No matter the truth, appearances would condemn Daniel. At best, he would be arrested. At worst, shot on sight. "But we would tell them you saved us," Emma protested, now fully awake. "They'd have to believe us." Daniel's expression was gentle but firm. Children's words against a tracker's, too traumatized. "Girls defending a savage? No, little one. The soldiers are not our friends in this matter." Lily knew he was right. The same prejudices that had made her initially fear Daniel would make any military patrol assume the worst. She thought of the boarding school he had described, where native children were stripped of their language and culture. The soldiers represented that same authority, an authority unlikely to listen to the truth if it contradicted their expectations. "What do we do?" she asked, practical as always. "We change." "Of course," Daniel decided. "Move east through the pine forest, then circle back to approach the camp from the highlands. It adds half a day to our journey, but avoids the patrol." The new route proved challenging, particularly for Emma, whose strength was still compromised. The pine forest offered welcome shade, but required them to climb steep slopes and navigate dense underbrush. By midday, all three travelers were exhausted, their water running dangerously low. "We rest here," Daniel announced when they reached a small clearing. "The trees hide us from both soldiers and the Dixon gang. When the sun begins to set, we will continue." He fashioned a simple shelter from pine boughs while the girls gathered soft needles for bedding. Their teamwork had become practiced, requiring few words, a notable change from their initial wariness. When the shelter was complete, they settled inside its fragrant confines, grateful for the chance to rest aching muscles. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, but Lily remained awake, watching Daniel as he carefully rationed their remaining water. "Will we reach the camp tomorrow?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "By midday, if we encounter no more patrols." He hesitated, then added, "There is something you should know before we arrive. My people will welcome you because I bring you, but some may be wary. Many have suffered at the hands of white settlers or soldiers." "Like you suffered at the boarding school," Lily acknowledged. "Yes, and worse." Daniel's eyes held old pain. "My mother was killed during the long walk, when soldiers forced many Navajo to march hundreds of miles from our homeland to a barren reservation. Thousands died. Those who survived have not forgotten." Lily absorbed this information solemnly. "We'll be respectful," she promised, "and grateful for any help they offer." Daniel seemed satisfied with her response. "Sleep now," he urged. "Tonight's journey will be difficult." Though exhaustion pulled at her, Lily found sleep elusive. The complications of their situation weighed heavily, pursued by murderers, unable to seek help from authorities, heading toward a community that had every reason to reject them. The simple goal of survival had never seemed so complex. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were troubled, visions of her parents alternating with images of soldiers, the Dixon gang, and endless desert. She woke to Daniel's hand gently, shaking her shoulder, the forest around them already darkening with twilight. "Time to move," he said softly. "We travel by night for safety." Emma was already awake, looking more rested than she had in days. The forest air and solid sleep had refreshed her, bringing color back to her cheeks and alertness to her blue eyes. She helped gather their few belongings without complaint, a marked change from the frightened child of just days ago. They set out as the first stars appeared, Daniel leading them on a route that seemed incomprehensible to Lily, but clearly followed. Some logic known to him. The forest thinned gradually, giving way to scrubland that offered less cover but easier walking. They maintained a steady pace, stopping only when absolutely necessary. It was during one such brief rest, as they shared the last of their water, that disaster struck. The shot came without warning, a sharp crack that shattered the night's quiet, sending birds exploding from nearby trees. Daniel jerked forward, a grunt of pain escaping him as his hand flew to his left shoulder. "Run!" he commanded, pushing both girls toward a nearby rock outcropping. "Hide!" Lily grabbed Emma's hand and they sprinted for cover, hearts pounding with terror. Behind them came a second shot, then a third, both missing their marks as Daniel dove in the opposite direction, drawing the shooter's attention away from the girls. From the safety of the rocks, Lily peered cautiously into the darkness. She could make out Daniel crouched behind a fallen log about 30 yards away, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Beyond him, barely visible in the starlight, a man moved through the brush, rifle at the ready. "Found you at last," the man called, his voice carrying clearly in the still night air. "Thought you could outrun Jasper Dixon, didn't you, Injun?" Lily's blood ran cold. One of the Dixon gang had found them, not Mason himself, but clearly one of his men, and he had wounded Daniel. "I know you got those girl witnesses with you," Jasper continued, moving steadily closer to Daniel's position. "Mason wants 'em dead, and what Mason wants, Mason gets. You should have stayed with your own kind, Redskin." Daniel remained silent, conserving his strength. Lily could see him assessing his options, his gaze flicking briefly toward their hiding place to confirm the girls were concealed. Blood darkened his shirt around his shoulder, but his expression remained focused, calculating. Lily realized with growing horror that Daniel was trapped. If he moved, Jasper would shoot him. If he stayed put, the gunman would eventually reach his position, and all the while he was losing blood from his wound. "Emma," she whispered, an idea forming. "I need you to be very brave right now. When I tell you, I want you to run as fast as you can toward those trees." She pointed to a dense stand of juniper about 50 yards to their right. "Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." Emma's eyes widened with fear. "What about you and Daniel?" "I'm going to help Daniel," Lily said with more confidence than she felt. "But I need to know you're safe first." Before Emma could protest further, a third figure emerged from the darkness behind Jasper Dixon, another member of the gang, this one armed with a pistol. The situation had just become twice as desperate. Lily knew they had seconds, not minutes, to act. She picked up a rock, testing its weight in her hand. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all she had. "Now, Emma," she urged. "Run!" Emma bolted from their hiding place, her small form darting toward the junipers with surprising speed. As hoped, the sudden movement captured the attention of both gunmen, who swung their weapons toward the unexpected motion. In that crucial moment of distraction, Lily emerged from the opposite side of the rocks and hurled her stone with all her strength. Years of playing baseball with boys in Riverdale had given her a strong arm and true aim. The rock struck Jasper Dixon's head with a solid thunk, sending him staggering. Daniel seized the opportunity. Despite his wounded shoulder, he launched himself at the second gunman, tackling him before he could fire at either girl. The two men went down in a tangle of limbs, wrestling for control of the pistol. Lily ran toward the fallen rifle, snatching it up from where Jasper had dropped it when struck. The weapon was heavy, unfamiliar in her hands, but she pointed it at Jasper with grim determination as he struggled to regain his feet. "Don't move," she ordered, her voice shaking but her aim steady. "I know how to use this." It was a bluff. She'd never fired a gun in her life, but Jasper, still dazed from the rock impact, seemed to believe her. He froze, blood trickling from a gash on his temple. A few yards away, Daniel had gained the upper hand in his struggle with the second gunman, wrenching the pistol free and delivering a swift blow to the man's jaw that left him unconscious. Despite this victory, Daniel was clearly weakening, his movements becoming less coordinated as blood loss took its toll. "Lily!" he called, his voice strained. "Bring rope from my pack, quickly!" Working together, they bound both men securely, using Daniel's hunting knife to cut strips from Jasper's own shirt when the rope proved insufficient. Only when their captives were thoroughly immobilized did Daniel allow himself to sink to the ground, pain finally registering on his face. "Emma," Lily called, "you can come out now. It's safe." Emma emerged cautiously from the junipers, rushing to Daniel's side when she saw his condition. "You're hurt bad," she said, her small face creased. "With worry, I have survived worse," Daniel assured her, though his pallor suggested otherwise. "Lily, in my pack, there is a small pouch of yellow powder. Mix it with water to make a paste." Lily followed his instructions, creating a thick paste that Daniel applied to his wound after cleaning it as best he could. The makeshift treatment seemed to slow the bleeding, but Daniel's strength was clearly fading. "We cannot stay here," he said, struggling to his feet. "Where there are 2 Dixon men, others will follow." "But you can't walk far," Emma protested. "You need a doctor." Daniel managed a weak smile. "My people have healers as skilled as any white doctor, but we must reach them first." He turned to Lily. "Take the pistol. If these men wake and make noise, you know what must be done." The implicit request horrified Lily. "I can't kill them," she whispered. "Nor would I ask you to," Daniel replied gently. "A warning shot will silence them, that is all." Somewhat relieved, Lily took the pistol, handling it gingerly. Daniel retrieved his pack and the rifle, though the effort clearly cost him. With Emma supporting him on his uninjured side, they set off once more toward the distant mesa and the promise of safety it represented. Behind them, bound and gagged with their own bandanas, the Dixon gang members lay helpless, a small victory in what Lily knew would be a much longer battle for survival. Ahead lay an uncertain welcome from the Navajo, Daniel's worsening condition, and the knowledge that the rest of the Dixon gang would be searching for their missing members. As they moved slowly through the night, Lily found herself praying, not just for their survival, but for Daniel's recovery. In just a few short days, this man from a culture so different from her own had become more than a rescuer. He had become family in all the ways that truly mattered. And family, as her father had always taught her, was worth any risk, any sacrifice. Stars continued their cold, distant vigil overhead, bearing witness to the unlikely bond forged between 3 souls thrown together by tragedy and sustained by courage. Somewhere in that vast expanse, Lily liked to think her parents were watching, too, and approving of the strange path that had led their daughters to find protection in the most unexpected of places. Dawn broke over the mesa, painting its steep sides in hues of gold and amber as Lily, Emma, and a badly wounded Daniel struggled toward safety. Daniel's condition had worsened throughout the night, his face ashen beneath its natural bronze, his movements increasingly unsteady. Only sheer determination kept him on his feet, one arm draped across Lily's shoulders, while Emma carried his pack and the captured weapons. "There," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper as he pointed toward a narrow trail winding up the mesa's face. "That path leads to my people's camp." The trail appeared dangerously steep to Lily's tired eyes, especially for someone in Daniel's weakened state. "Can you make it?" she asked, not bothering to hide her concern. Daniel's smile was strained, but genuine. "I must." He straightened slightly, summoning reserves of strength Lily could only marvel at. "This journey began with me carrying Emma. It seems fitting it ends with you carrying me." The climb tested them all. The trail, while well established, was meant for people accustomed to the terrain and in good health. 3 times Daniel nearly collapsed, and twice they had to stop for him to rest. Each time Lily feared he would be unable to continue. Each time he proved her wrong, pushing himself beyond what seemed humanly possible. Emma, normally so talkative, maintained a worried silence, her small face set with determination as she picked her way up the trail ahead of them, occasionally turning back to offer encouragement. The transformation in her sister struck Lily powerfully. This was not the same child who had played with dolls on their family's porch in Missouri. In less than a week, Emma had been forged by tragedy and survival into something harder, sharper, more resilient. Lily suspected the same was true of herself, the girl who had left Missouri, concerned with ribbons and books, and what the neighbors thought seemed to belong to another lifetime. That girl could never have imagined herself supporting a wounded Navajo man up a mesa trail, a pistol tucked into her belt, her skin darkened with ochre, her heart burning with equal measures of grief and determination. They were nearing the top when a shout rang out from above. Two figures appeared at the trail's end, Navajo men, rifles in hand, their expressions suspicious as they took in the unlikely trio ascending toward them. "Ya-ate shikei," Daniel called weakly, using his native tongue. "Daniel Swift." Orta, returning with friends in need. The men exchanged glances, clearly noting Daniel's condition and the strange appearance of the girls. After a brief consultation, one disappeared back over the mesa's edge, while the other descended toward them, rifle still at the ready, but his manner less overtly hostile. "What happened?" he asked Daniel in accented English, eyeing the blood-stained. "His shoulder, Dixon gang," Daniel replied, his strength visibly fading. "Ambushed us, these girls. Witnesses to their crimes need protection." The man nodded once, then moved to Daniel's other side, taking much of his weight from Lily. Together, they managed the final stretch of trail, emerging onto the mesa top, just as Daniel's legs finally gave out entirely. What Lily saw before her stole what little breath remained after the arduous climb. The Navajo summer camp spread across the mesa plateau. Dozens of hogans, arranged in a traditional pattern, smoke rising from cooking fires, horses and sheep in wooden corrals. Women worked at outdoor looms creating intricate textiles, while children played games nearby and elders sat in shaded areas, their hands busy with various crafts. It was an entire community, vibrant and self-sufficient. Nothing like the primitive camps she had heard described by settlers. Before she could absorb more details, they were surrounded by concerned Navajo, alerted by the returning scout. Daniel was quickly lifted onto a blanket and carried toward one of the larger hogans, a woman who appeared to be in her 60s hurrying alongside, already examining his wound with practiced hands. Lily and Emma found themselves momentarily forgotten in the crisis, standing uncertain amid the flurry of activity. Then a young woman approached, perhaps 18 or 19, her manner cautious, but not unfriendly. "I am Morning Sky," she introduced herself, her English clear though marked by the same melodic accent as Daniel's. "Daniel's cousin. You are the children he was seeking?" Lily nodded, suddenly acutely aware of their appearance. Travel-worn, dirty, still bearing the ochre disguise Daniel had applied. "I'm Lily Harper," she replied. "This is my sister, Emma. Our parents were killed by the Dixon gang. Daniel saved us." Morning Sky's expression softened. "And now you have saved him, bringing him home when he could not walk alone. Come. You need food and rest while our healer tends to him." She led them to a smaller hogan, gesturing for them to enter. Inside, the dwelling was surprisingly comfortable. Clean, swept earth floor covered with woven rugs, bedding arranged around a central hearth, various household items organized neatly along the walls. A young boy of perhaps 12 sat near the entrance, watching the newcomers with undisguised curiosity. "My brother Running Deer," Morning Sky explained. "He will fetch water so you can wash." She addressed the boy in Navajo, and he nodded, rising smoothly to his feet and slipping past them into the sunlight. "Will Daniel be all right?" Emma asked, her voice small with worry. Morning Sky's hesitation spoke volumes. "Grandmother Swift. Knife is our best healer. If anyone can save him, she will." She busied herself preparing a simple meal of corn cakes and dried fruit. "He must have thought you very important, to risk so much." "We didn't ask him to," Lily said quickly. "We never wanted him to get hurt because of us. Daniel makes his own choices," Morning Sky replied, her tone gentle but firm. "Always has. When the government men came to take children to their school, Daniel walked to their wagon himself, rather than have his father beaten for resisting." A hint of pride touched her features. "He returned, speaking their language, but with his spirit. Untamed. Few manage that." Running Deer returned with water, setting down 2 clay bowls before retreating to a respectful distance. Morning Sky showed the girls how to wash away the travel dust and ochre disguise, providing clean cloths and a comb fashioned from porcupine quills for their tangled hair. As they refreshed themselves, more visitors arrived, women bringing additional food, children peering curiously through the doorway until shooed away by their mothers, and finally an elderly man whose bearing commanded immediate respect. "This is Chief Many Horses," Morning Sky introduced him with evident deference. "Daniels, grandfather and leader of our clan." The chief studied the girls intently, his weathered face revealing nothing of his thoughts. Though he must have been at least 80, his posture remained straight, his dark eyes sharp with intelligence beneath his silver hair. "So," he said finally, his voice deep and resonant, "you are the ones my grandson risked his life to bring here." It wasn't quite a question, but Lily felt compelled to answer. "Yes, sir," she replied, using the form of address her father had taught her for respected elders. "He saved us when we were lost in the desert. He protected us from bad men. We are very grateful." Chief Many Horses nodded slowly. Daniel has always seen with a heart uncluttered by hatred. Even as a boy, he could look past differences to find truth. His gaze shifted between the sisters. "What truth do you bring to our mesa, daughters of settlers?" The question caught Lily off guard. What truth did they bring? They were simply two orphaned girls, seeking safety, weren't they? Yet something in the chief's steady gaze suggested he was asking for more than a simple recounting of their ordeal. "We bring the truth that kindness can come from unexpected places," she said carefully. "That the stories we've been told about each other aren't always right. That someone we were taught to fear could become our greatest protector." A flicker of approval crossed the old man's face. "Good. You have learned what Daniel wished to teach you." He settled himself on a woven mat, accepting a cup of tea from Morning Sky with a nod of thanks. "Now you must learn what our people can teach you while you are among us." "How long will we stay here?" Emma asked, finding her voice at last. "Until Daniel recovers," the chief replied simply. "Until the Dixon gang is no longer hunting you, until the way forward becomes clear." He sipped his tea thoughtfully. Time moves differently on the mesa. Days become weeks without notice when one lives by the rhythms of nature rather than the ticking of clocks. This concept, living without rigid schedules or deadlines, was foreign to the sisters, raised as they had been in a society that increasingly valued punctuality and productivity. Yet there was something appealing about it too, especially after the desperate rush of their journey. "While you are here," Chief Many Horses continued, "you will live as Navajo children. You will learn our ways, help with our work, and be under our protection." His expression grew serious. "But know this, though we welcome you for Daniel's sake, there are some among us who have suffered greatly at the hands of white people. Their hearts are still wounded, their memories still sharp with pain." "We understand," Lily assured him. "We'll be respectful and grateful for any kindness shown to us." The chief nodded, apparently satisfied. "Morning Sky will be your guide. Listen well to her teachings." With that, he rose to his feet in one fluid motion, belying his age, and departed, leaving a thoughtful silence in his wake. The days that followed took on a dreamlike quality for Lily and Emma. While Daniel fought for his life in the healer's hogan, the sisters were gradually integrated into the daily routines of the Navajo camp. Morning Sky proved a patient teacher, showing them how to grind corn, tend the cooking fires, and assist with the endless small tasks that kept the community functioning. Running Deer took a special interest in Emma, teaching her words in the Navajo language and showing her how to fashion a simple toy from corn husks. The boy's initial shyness gave way to an exuberant friendship that transcended the barriers of language and culture, their laughter a common sound around the camp as they raced between hogans or practiced with Running Deer's small bow. Lily's integration was slower, more deliberate. As the older sister, she felt a responsibility to learn everything she could, not just for their immediate survival, but for whatever future awaited them. She paid careful attention to the women's work, noting how the community shared resources and resolved conflicts, how the elders were treated with profound respect, how children were granted independence within clear boundaries of safety and propriety. "Your hands learn quickly," observed Swift-Knife, the elderly healer, when she found Lily attempting to weave a small basket under Morning Sky's tutelage. "They remember what the mind does not." Lily looked up, startled. This was the first time the healer had addressed her directly. "What do you mean?" Swift-Knife settled beside her, her gnarled hands taking the unfinished basket to demonstrate a technique. "The old ones say that all knowledge is remembering, that our spirits have lived many times, learning in each life." She returned the basket, watching as Lily imitated her movements. "Perhaps in another life you were Dine." The suggestion might have seemed outlandish to Lily a week earlier. Now, after all she had experienced, it felt strangely plausible. There was a comfort, a sense of rightness in these ancient skills that she couldn't explain otherwise. "How is Daniel?" she asked, the question that was never far from her thoughts. Swift-Knife's weathered face revealed little. "The battle continues. His body fights the corruption in the wound. His spirit walks between worlds." She eyed Lily keenly. "He would heal faster if he had a reason to return to this world with certainty." "Can we see him?" Lily had asked this question daily, always, receiving the same answer. But today, Swift-Knife surprised her. "Yes, tonight, when the sun touches the western peaks. Bring the little one. Bring something of yourselves to leave beside him, something to guide his spirit back." Anticipation and anxiety warred within Lily for the remainder of the day. What could they bring that would help Daniel? They had nothing of value, nothing personal except the clothes they wore and Emma's small stone from home. It was Emma who solved the dilemma. "I know what we can bring," she announced confidently after. Lily explained their challenge. "Come on!" She led Lily to a sunny spot near the edge of the mesa where wildflowers grew in surprising profusion. With careful deliberation, Emma selected blossoms of different colors and shapes. "Remember how Papa used to bring Mama flowers when she was sad or sick?" she asked as she gathered her impromptu bouquet. "He said flowers carry messages that words can't say." Lily felt a lump form in her throat at the memory. Their father, for all his practical frontier skills, had maintained this one romantic gesture throughout their marriage, bringing wildflowers to their mother at unexpected moments. It was a devotion that had been the secret envy of neighbor. Women whose own husbands considered such gestures frivolous. "That's perfect, Em," she managed, helping her sister select the brightest blooms. "Daniel will understand." When the sun finally touched the western peaks, painting the sky in spectacular shades of crimson and gold, Swift-Knife appeared at the entrance of Morning Sky's wagon, where the girls had been staying. "Come," she said simply, turning without waiting for a response. The healer's wagon was larger than the others, with a smoke hole positioned to create a natural draft that kept the interior surprisingly fresh. Various herbs hung from the ceiling beams, their aromatic scents creating a complex perfume unlike anything Lily had experienced before. Smooth stones of different sizes were arranged in a pattern around the central fire pit, and several clay pots simmered with medicinal preparations. Daniel lay on a bed of furs against the far wall. His upper body was bare, except for the bandages covering his shoulder and chest, his normally vibrant skin pale with blood loss. He appeared to be sleeping, though his breathing seemed shallow to Lily's anxious eyes. "Sit," Swift-Knife instructed, indicating positions on either side of Daniel. "Place your gifts where his eyes will see them when he wakes. Then each of you take one of his hands. Let him feel your presence." The girls did as instructed, Emma carefully arranging her wildflowers. In a small clay cup provided by the healer, Lily taking one of Daniel's hands, while Emma took the other. His skin felt warm, too warm, Lily thought with concern, recognizing the heat of fever. "Now you must talk to him," Swift Knife said, settling nearby with a rattle made from a gourd. "Tell him why he must return to this world. Remind him of unfinished business. Call his spirit back from its wandering." Emma needed no further encouragement. "Daniel, you have to get better," she said urgently, squeezing his hand. "We brought you flowers, see? And Running Deer is teaching me to shoot a bow, but he's not as good a teacher as you. And we're learning Navajo words, but sometimes I say them wrong, and everyone laughs." Her artless chatter continued, detailing their days on the mesa, the things they'd learned, the people they'd met. Throughout her monologue, Swift Knife maintained a soft, rhythmic shaking of her rattle, creating a gentle backdrop of sound that seemed to fill the hogan with vibration. When Emma finally ran out of words, she looked expectantly at Lily, who had remained silent, overwhelmed by the mixture of foreign ritual and very real fear for Daniel's life. "Your turn," Emma prompted. "Tell him." Lily swallowed hard, suddenly uncertain what to say. Unlike Emma's innocent prattle, her thoughts seemed too complex, too contradictory to articulate. How could she explain to this unconscious man what his actions had meant to her? How his courage had restored her faith in humanity after witnessing their parents' murder? How his patient teaching had shown her a different way of seeing the world? "Daniel," she began hesitantly, "we need you to come back to us. Not just because we're still in danger, though we are. Not just because we don't know what will happen next, though we don't." She tightened her grip on his hand. "We need you because you showed us that goodness can survive even in a world that tries to beat it down. Because you trusted us when you had no reason to. Because you're family now, and we've lost too much family already." As she spoke, something shifted in the atmosphere of the hogan. Swift Knife's rattle grew more insistent, and the firelight seemed to flicker with greater intensity. Lily felt a strange tingling in her hand where it clasped Daniel's, as if some energy passed between them, some recognition. Then, so subtly she thought she might have imagined it, Daniel's fingers tightened around hers. His eyelids fluttered, though they didn't open. "He hears you," Swift Knife said with quiet certainty. "His spirit turns back toward this world." The old woman nodded with satisfaction. "Go now. Let him rest. Return tomorrow." Outside the hogan, the twilight had deepened to true night, stars appearing in breathtaking profusion overhead. Lily felt oddly light-headed, as if the ritual in the healer's dwelling had altered something fundamental within her. Emma seemed similarly affected, unusually quiet, as they made their way back to Morning Sky's hogan. "Do you think he'll get better now?" Emma asked as they settled onto their sleeping mats. Lily considered the question seriously. "I think he's fighting very hard," she said finally, "and I think he knows we're waiting for him." That night, Lily dreamed of her father. He stood at the edge of the mesa, looking out over the vast desert below, his expression peaceful in a way she hadn't seen since before the economic troubles that had driven them westward. "You've done well, Lily girl," he said, using his old pet name for her. "You've kept Emma safe. You've made friends where others would have seen only enemies. Your mother and I are proud. I miss you," Lily said, her dream self unburdened by the stoicism she maintained while awake. "It's so hard without you." Her father turned to her, his blue eyes, the same eyes he had passed to both his daughters, kind but resolute. "The hardest paths often lead to the most beautiful destinations," he said. "Trust the journey, Lily, and trust the guides you meet along the way." She woke with tears on her cheeks, but a curious sense of peace in her heart. Whatever happened next, she knew with certainty that they were exactly where they needed to be, learning lessons that would shape the rest of their lives, forming bonds that transcended the artificial boundaries of race and culture, and discovering strengths within themselves they never knew existed. The transformation was well underway. Lily Harper, who had fled into the desert as a terrified girl, was emerging as something new. A young woman with the wisdom to recognize value in different ways of living, the courage to face enemies when necessary, and the heart to form family. From the most unlikely materials. As the pre-dawn light began to filter through the smoke hole of the hogan, Lily rose quietly, careful not to wake Emma. She stepped outside into the cool morning air, watching as the first golden rays of sunlight touched the eastern edge of the mesa. A new day was beginning, and somehow she knew it would bring new hope as well. 3 weeks passed on the mesa, each day bringing subtle but significant changes. Daniel's condition improved steadily under Swift Knife's care, his fever breaking after 5 days, his strength returning gradually afterward. The wound would leave a scar, a permanent reminder of his sacrifice, but it would not limit his movement or abilities once fully healed. For Lily and Emma, the passage of time brought a deepening integration into the Navajo community. What had begun as necessary shelter had evolved into something more profound, a genuine belonging that surprised them both. Emma had become Running Deer's constant companion, her fair hair now typically braided in Navajo style, her speech peppered with Diné words. She helped tend the sheep, learned to make simple pottery, and proudly wore the moccasins Morning Sky had crafted for her. Lily's transformation was more internal, but no less significant. Working alongside the women of the camp, she had absorbed not just practical skills, but a different philosophy of living, one that valued harmony with nature, respect for elders, and a sense of community responsibility unlike anything she had experienced in white settlements. "You move differently now," Daniel observed one evening as they sat outside his hogan, where he had been moved once Swift Knife declared him past the worst danger. "More balanced. Like your spirit has found its center." Lily considered this. "Everything feels different," she admitted. "The way I see things, the way I think about what matters." She gestured toward Emma, who was engrossed in a string game with several Navajo children nearby. "Look at her. I've never seen her so happy, even before." She couldn't finish the sentence, but Daniel understood. "Children adapt more easily than adults," he said. "They have not yet built high walls between us and them. They see people as people." "I think I'm learning to do that too," Lily said softly. Daniel smiled, the expression lighting his dark eyes. "That is the greatest wisdom anyone can achieve." Their peaceful existence on the mesa was not destined to last, however. The first disruption came in the form of a Navajo scout returning from Copper Springs with troubling news, delivered to a council of elders with Daniel in attendance. Lily, now trusted enough to help with translations when needed, was present as well. "The Dixon gang has put bounties on the Harper girls' heads," the scout reported grimly, "claiming they are dangerous fugitives who murdered a settler family and fled with stolen goods." A ripple of consternation passed through the gathered elders. Chief Many Horses turned to Daniel. "They twist the truth into its opposite," he observed. "A common tactic of those with guilty hearts." Daniel nodded, his expression darkening. "They seek to turn potential allies against the girls, make it dangerous for anyone to help them." "There is more," the scout continued. "They say the girls were kidnapped by a Navajo warrior. They offer additional reward for this savage kidnapper, dead or alive." Lily felt cold despite the warm evening. The Dixon gang was not simply trying to silence witnesses anymore. They were actively working to incite violence against both the girls and the Navajo people who had sheltered them. "There are hunters already searching," the scout added. "Not just the Dixon gang, but others seeking the reward. Some talk of organizing a larger party to search the mesas and canyons. They would attack our camp, one of the elders asked, alarm evident in his voice. Chief Many Horses raised a calming hand. Not directly. Even bounty hunters fear the consequences of attacking a peaceful Navajo settlement without military backing, but they will search nearby. If they find signs of white children here, he let the implications hang in the air. We should move the camp, another elder suggested. Go deeper into the canyon lands where they cannot easily follow. The suggestion was logical, but Lily could see the burden it would place on the entire community. Packing their belongings, dismantling hogans, traveling with children and elders, all because she and Emma had brought danger to their doorstep. No, she said firmly, surprising herself with her own boldness in addressing the council. You shouldn't have to leave your home because of us. We'll go. Daniel started to protest, but Lily continued, her mind working through the problem aloud. The Dixon gang wants to silence us because we can identify them as the murderers of our parents and other settlers. They're creating these lies because they're afraid of the truth. A new determination hardened her voice. So we need to tell the truth before they can spread more lies. You wish to go to the authorities? Daniel asked. That would be extremely dangerous. The Dixon gang has connections, as I told you before. Not just any authorities, Lily clarified. We need someone with real power who can't be bought. Someone who would listen to children and a Navajo man. An idea crystallized in her mind. The federal marshal in Prescott. Papa mentioned him once. Marshal Bennett said he was one of the few honest lawmen in the territory. Chief Many Horses stroked his chin thoughtfully. The distance to Prescott is considerable. The journey would be perilous with so many hunting you. Which is why they wouldn't. Expect it, Lily countered. They'll be looking for us to hide or to run to a closer settlement. Daniel studied her with new appreciation. Your strategy has merit, he acknowledged. But I cannot yet ride long distances. My shoulder... I'll go with them. A new voice interrupted. Morning Sky stepped into the council circle, her bearing proud and determined. I can guide them safely to Prescott. My father traded there for many years before his passing. I know the city and some of its people. Chief Many Horses considered his granddaughter with evident concern. The danger would be great, Morning Sky. If you were captured with these children, then I will not be captured, she replied simply. I have learned from the best tracker in our tribe. She nodded respectfully toward Daniel. And I have my father's gift for moving unseen when necessary. The debate continued late into the night, arguments circling and evolving as various options were considered. Ultimately, the decision came down to what served both justice and safety, not just for Lily and Emma, but for the entire Navajo community that had protected them. The plan that emerged was both daring and complex. Morning Sky would indeed guide the girls to Prescott, but by an unexpected route that avoided established trails. Meanwhile, a separate party of Navajo men would create a false trail, suggesting the girls had fled south toward Mexico, a believable misdirection that would draw bounty hunters away from both the mesa and the true path to Prescott. Daniel, still recovering but determined to contribute, would travel separately to Fort Whipple near Prescott to speak with a sympathetic lieutenant he had worked with during his scouting days. With military testimony supporting the girls' account, the Dixon gang's web of lies would begin to unravel. It is a good plan, Chief Many Horses concluded as dawn approached. Bold but not reckless, the kind of plan my grandson would create. He nodded approvingly at Lily, acknowledging her role in its formation. Preparations began immediately, conducted with quiet efficiency to avoid alerting anyone who might be watching the mesa. Morning Sky gathered supplies for the journey, while Daniel provided detailed maps and information about safe water sources along their route. The false trail party, led by Running Deer's father, departed before noon, making deliberately obvious tracks heading south. Telling Emma about their imminent departure proved more difficult than Lily had anticipated. Her sister had flourished on the mesa, forming deep friendships and embracing Navajo ways with childlike enthusiasm. The prospect of leaving brought tears and protests. "Why can't we just stay here forever?" Emma demanded, clutching the cornhusk doll Running Deer had made for her. "Nobody would find us. We could become Navajo for real." Lily knelt to her sister's level, understanding her distress. "The Dixon gang won't stop looking for us, Em. And as long as they're looking, everyone here is in danger." She brushed a strand of hair from Emma's face. "Besides, don't you think Mama and Papa would want us to make sure the bad men who hurt them are punished?" This appeal to justice resonated with Emma in a way that safety concerns hadn't, her small jaw set with determination that reminded Lily painfully of their father. "We'll tell the marshal everything," she declared. "Make sure they go to jail. Forever." Their departure was set for midnight, when darkness would provide maximum coverage. As the appointed hour approached, unexpected farewells brought lumps to both girls' throats. Running Deer presented Emma with a small bow he had crafted himself, sized perfectly for her hands. Swift Knife gave Lily a medicine pouch containing herbs for healing and protection. Other gifts followed: a blanket, a small clay water jug, a leather bag of parched corn. But the most significant farewell came from Daniel, who met them at the edge of the mesa just before they were to leave with Morning Sky. "I had hoped to take this journey with you," he said, regret evident in his voice, "to see your quest for justice completed." "You've done more than enough," Lily assured him, fighting back tears. "We wouldn't be alive without you." Daniel smiled, though his eyes remained serious. "We have traveled a circular path, you and I. I found you dying in the desert. You brought me home wounded to my people. Now we part again, each to finish what must be done." He placed his hands gently on their shoulders. "But this is not a true ending. Our paths will cross again." "Promise?" Emma asked, unabashed tears streaming down her face. "I promise, little one." Daniel knelt to embrace her, then rose to face Lily. "You have the heart of a warrior and the wisdom of an elder," he told her, softly. "Remember what you have learned here when you return to your own people." "I'll never forget," Lily vowed, her voice thick with emotion. "Any of it. Any of you." "It is time," Morning Sky said gently, appearing beside them with a pack for each girl. "We must use all the darkness the night offers." With final embraces and whispered goodbyes, they began their descent down a rarely used trail on the mesa's western face. Lily looked back once to see Daniel's silhouette against the starlit sky, his hand raised in farewell. She raised her own in response, a gesture that felt both like an ending and a beginning. The journey to Prescott took 8 days, longer than it might have with a more direct route, but Morning Sky's caution proved warranted. Twice they spotted search parties in the distance, once changing course entirely to avoid a camp of bounty hunters. They traveled mainly at night, resting in hidden places during daylight hours, and subsisted on food they carried or foraged, rather than risking fires that might be spotted. Throughout the journey, Morning Sky continued the girls' education in Navajo ways, teaching them to find water in seemingly dry places, to recognize plants that could heal or harm, to move across terrain, leaving minimal signs of passage. Emma soaked up the knowledge eagerly, while Lily noted how these skills complemented what she had learned on the mesa. Prescott appeared suddenly on the 8th day, a sprawling collection of wooden buildings nestled in a valley of pine trees. So different from the desert landscapes they had traversed, that it seemed almost like entering another world. The signs of white civilization struck Lily as simultaneously familiar and foreign after their weeks among the Navajo. Morning Sky halted on a ridge overlooking the town. "This is where I leave you," she said, her expression conflicted. A Navajo woman in Prescott attracts unwanted attention. But how will you get back safely? Emma protested. I have traveled these lands since childhood, Morning Sky assured her with a smile. My path home is already planned. Daniel will meet me at White Rock Canyon in 3 days, and we will return to the mesa together. The farewell was brief but heartfelt. Morning Sky embraced each girl, then pressed something into Lily's hand. A small stone pendant on a leather cord. To remember your Navajo family, she explained, and to remind you that bridges can be built between different worlds. Lily and Emma descended into Prescott alone, their appearance drawing curious stares from townspeople. Though they had washed away the trail dust and removed their Navajo-style ornaments before entering town, they still presented an unusual sight. 2 young girls, travel-worn and unaccompanied, walking purposefully toward the marshal's office. Marshal, James Bennett proved to be everything their father had described. A tall, stern-faced man with keen eyes that missed nothing and a reputation for incorruptible justice. Initial skepticism gave way to focused attention as the girls told their story, laying out the details of the Dixon gang's attacks on both settlers and Navajo, their parents' murder, and their rescue and protection by Daniel Swifthorse. That's quite a tale, Bennett said when they'd finished, his weathered face thoughtful. Ordinarily, I'd have trouble believing 2 young'uns could survive such an ordeal, but as it happens, I've got some corroborating evidence. He reached into a desk drawer and withdrew a telegram. This arrived yesterday from Fort Whipple. Lieutenant Harrison reports meeting with a Navajo scout named Swifthorse, who provided similar details about the Dixon gang's operations. The marshal's mouth twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. Seems your Navajo friend knows how to work within our system when needed. Relief washed over Lily. Daniel had succeeded in his mission just as they had in theirs. The Marshal was already moving to action, dispatching deputies to round up known associates of Mason Dixon and sending additional telegrams to territorial officials requesting reinforcements for a larger operation. You girls will stay at Mrs. Holloway's boarding house under deputy protection until this is resolved, he informed them. She's a good woman, lost her own daughter to fever last year. She'll see you're properly looked after. What happens after? Lily asked the question that had hovered at the edges of her thoughts throughout their journey. After the Dixon gang is caught, I mean. We don't have any family left. Marshal Bennett's stern face softened slightly. Let's handle one problem at a time, Miss Harper. Justice first, then we'll see about your future. The events of the following days unfolded with surprising swiftness. Armed with the girls' testimony and Daniel's intelligence, Marshal Bennett organized a coordinated effort that caught the Dixon gang in a pincer movement between his deputies and a cavalry unit from Fort Whipple. Mason Dixon himself was killed, resisting arrest, but the remaining gang members were captured alive, including Jasper Dixon, who still bore the scar from Lily's rock on his temple. The trial was brief by territorial standards, with multiple witnesses testifying to the gang's crimes, including surviving victims from other attacks. Conviction was never in doubt. When the judge pronounced sentences of hanging for 3 gang members and life imprisonment for the rest, Lily felt a complex mixture of emotions, relief and vindication, but also a hollow recognition that even justice couldn't bring back what they had lost. Their story created a sensation throughout the territory. Newspapers dubbed them the Desert Sisters and published romanticized accounts of their ordeal and survival. Offers of adoption came from families as far away as San Francisco, many attracted, more by the notoriety than genuine concern for the girls' welfare. Through it all, Lily remained focused on one question: when would they see Daniel again? He had promised their paths would cross once more, but weeks had passed since their arrival in Prescott with no word from him or Morning Sky. The answer came unexpectedly during a meeting with Marshal Bennett and a territorial judge about their future placement. As the adults discussed options, a respectable boarding school in California, adoption by a judge's sister in Denver, a knock at the door interrupted their deliberations. Daniel's swift horse stood in the doorway, dressed in a curious blend of Navajo and Western clothing, his bearing dignified despite the obvious discomfort of the deputy who had shown him in. Behind him stood Morning Sky and, to Lily's surprise, Chief Many Horses himself. "Excuse the interruption," Daniel said formally, "but we have come to discuss the future of these children, who are under the protection of the Diné Nation." The judge blustered about proper channels and legal guardianship, but Marshal Bennett studied the Navajo delegation with thoughtful consideration. "Let's hear what they have to say, Your Honor. These people risked their lives to save these girls, when no one else would. What followed was unlike any negotiation Prescott had ever witnessed. Chief Many Horses, speaking through Daniel, proposed an unprecedented arrangement. The girls would live primarily with a respected white family in Prescott, receiving Western education and maintaining their cultural heritage, but would also spend summers with the Navajo, learning their ways and strengthening the bond that had been forged in crisis. "These children now belong to both worlds," the chief explained. "To force them to choose one over the other would diminish what they have become." The judge found the proposal highly irregular, but Marshal Bennett recognized its wisdom. "The territory is changing," he observed. "The future will require people who can bridge different worlds, who can see humanity on both sides. These girls have already learned that lesson in the hardest possible way." In the end, a compromise was reached. The girls would become wards of Jonathan and Martha Wilson, a childless couple with close ties to Marshal Bennett. Jonathan worked as a teacher in Prescott's small school, while Martha served as the town's midwife, positions that provided both stability and respect in the community. They had already met the girls during the trial and had shown genuine kindness without the morbid fascination that characterized many others' interest. But true to the agreement, each summer would find Lily and Emma returning to the mesa, welcomed as honorary members of the tribe, continuing their education in Navajo language, crafts, and spiritual traditions. They would live in Morning Sky's hogan, help with communal work, and participate in ceremonies appropriate for their age and status. "It is a new kind of family," Daniel told them after the arrangements were finalized. "Built not on blood, but on choice and respect, much like the family we formed in the desert." Standing on Prescott's main street, watching Daniel, Morning Sky, and Chief Many Horses prepare to depart for their journey home, Lily felt the weight of the past and the promise of the future in equal measure. They had lost so much: their parents, their home, their innocence about the world's cruelty. But they had gained something precious as well, a deeper understanding of humanity that transcended the artificial boundaries of race and culture. "We'll see you in summer?" Emma asked Daniel, clutching her small bow like a talisman. "When the cottonwoods release their seeds on the wind," he confirmed, resting a gentle hand on her head. "I will come myself to guide you back to the mesa." As the Navajo delegation rode away, Lily fingered the stone pendant Morning Sky had given her, its smooth surface warm against her skin. It was a tangible reminder of the extraordinary journey that had brought them here, a journey that had begun in terror and desperation, but had ultimately led to a new kind of home, one built across the divisions that separated most people in the Arizona Territory of 1885. Two orphaned girls, left to die in the desert, had not only survived, but had helped forge connections between worlds that rarely found common ground. In doing so, they had transformed their own tragedy into something that contained the seeds of hope, not just for themselves, but for the turbulent, changing land they now called home. Martha Wilson appeared beside them, her kind face concerned. "Ready to come home, girls? I've made apple dumplings for dessert." Home. The word held new meaning now, more complex, more inclusive than Lily had ever imagined possible. She took Emma's hand in her right and Martha's in her left, a living bridge between the worlds that had shaped her young life. "Yes," she said simply, "we're ready." And they were. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.